Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. Yeah, we're deep into fall game season already, it feels like.
It's true. Big releases every week, it seems.
Yeah, and I've played a bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about, and I know you've been playing some stuff that's...
I have mostly been playing Cyberpunk, but I have lots to say about it.
Yeah, and there's been some interesting news recently that maybe we should just dive right into.
Let's do it.
First up, the Balatro game that came out earlier this year and is very fun and addicting. That game is getting a mobile release later this month, and everybody's already like, man, that game was so addicting and time-consuming that having it just available in your pocket is going to be bad for your productivity. But
yeah, I think this would be a great game to have on a tablet because just the dragging and dropping of cards would just feel so good.
Yeah, I am excited to download this on I have the Google Pixel tablet, and so I'm going to probably download it on that and try it out. And I feel that
was my favorite way to play Hearthstone back when I played Hearthstone is on a tablet, because just the pulling around of cards feels so good on a big touchscreen.
Yeah, you can tell it is designed specifically for that, because you're basically doing that with a mouse pointer, but now you can do it with just a touchscreen. But
let's get to the big news.
Yeah, in some not so good news, I guess, Concord is being shut down, or has already shut down by the time this podcast is going up.
Yes, it's no longer available, and it's crazy. It was online for I think 14 days. It's crazy. So the saga of this is that I believe the first time we ever heard about Concord was during the Summer Games Fest. Am I right about that? That was the reveal trailer that we saw at Jeff Keighley's thing.
I think so. Yeah, I think that was the first time that we saw or heard of it. But
so that was at the end of May. They didn't do a ton of marketing for this, and then there was a closed beta, and then it released, and I guess numbers were not good. I think we talked on the show about how on Steam it only had 400 people playing it at its max. Which is crazy.
It peaked at something just under 700 players, I think, was the most that the beta had going at any one time. And so I knew it wasn't going to do well based on that, but I didn't expect it to be this bad.
It's pretty crazy. I think the main problems with this game are that, one, they released it for $40, which is crazy. And two, it came out in a market that's so saturated. Marvel Rivals just came out, is free, and has way more brand recognition than this new thing. So I don't know. I think it was a misstep to price it at that price point, and even to frankly, to make a hero shooter like this in a world where there already are so many hero shooters.
Yeah, and the game modes don't stand apart in any way. They're just standard Call of Duty modes, but they've made pretty bland character designs for their heroes. And there's no ultimate abilities, no special abilities. You just run around and shoot people, and you just happen to have some character specific abilities. But none of them are
you said the skins also were pretty boring.
Yeah, I mean, I played a bunch of the beta to give it a shot. I never played the full release, but I played the beta. And so I don't know if that was just a case with the beta where they didn't have everything available to unlock, but I was not getting interesting unlocks with it. And the few that I did get were I don't know, a slight color swap on one of the characters. It was just not interesting at all. So, and like you said, it's already a crowded market where you have Overwatch and Apex Legends, and you have all these other games that you could possibly be playing, and this one charges $40 instead of being free to play. I think the prediction was that this would sort of struggle on to find an audience for, I don't know, a few months, and then they would make it go free to play. And it didn't even achieve that. It got shut down after 14 days.
Well, and I saw some articles that I did not read that were like talking about how some developer or something was saying that it's, when asked about the free to play model, they were saying that was not conceivable. It was like unsalvageable was the word they used to describe the game, which is crazy because supposedly it was in development for like 7 or 8 years, and they're just gonna scrap it. It seems like, which is crazy.
If the free to play model wasn't salvageable for this game, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't have any insider details, but like, that just tells me you haven't done enough with your unlocks to make people want to, like, I don't know, purchase skins or, you know, buy season passes or anything like that.
I think what they thought they were doing is, I think they were banking on the hook of the like weekly episodic content, which I don't even know if they got to the first week of that. But they were supposedly going to have this evolving story with all the characters. But
the one scene I saw during the beta was really weird and uninteresting and like very bland. It's like happening to walk into the room when someone else is watching a show that you've never heard of or seen before, and characters are just talking to each other and you have no concept of like what the universe is or who the characters are or what they're talking about. Like, and that scene plays for like a minute and then it's over. If that was their week to week like story content that they were planning on, like, nobody's gonna just keep coming back week to week for this. Like, there was nothing there.
It's a wild move to... I mean, it's good that they refunded everyone's money. But I feel like this is... I mean, it's not unprecedented because this happened with Cyberpunk to a lesser extent. When that initially released, obviously, they had to stop selling it on like the PlayStation Store and stuff for last-gen consoles. And they refunded people's money. But... they didn't like just completely nix the game. Like they worked on it and made it better, and now it's a great game.
The only one I can think of was there was that Amazon like co-op online game. Do you remember that?
No.
I can't remember the name of it, but there was like an Amazon Studios like cooperative online game that I actually played a little bit of. And I don't remember what it was called. I would have to look it up. I bet it's still in my Steam library. But it was like some weird co-op thing that was also going for like hero shooter, like season pass type stuff, I feel
Interesting.
And it like was out for maybe a week or two, and then they like pulled it down. And I thought the intention was that they were going to work on it and then re-release it later. And they just never did. They just like canceled it. So it was called Crucible.
I don't remember that at all.
It came out in like 2020, maybe? I don't know. A weird game. That's the only other instance that I can think of that was like this, where you had a game that was like in development for a long time, came out, had like a full-on beta and people were playing it or whatever, and then it launched to like such poor sales numbers and such poor reception that they just like canceled the game basically shortly after release.
It's so wild because you would think they had a team ready to go to continue to produce stuff week to week for this, but I guess they're all going to get reassigned to something else because I don't know that we're ever going to have more Concord news after this. Like,
wasn't this a new studio as well?
Was it a new studio? Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't remember what the studio name was, but I mean, 8 years in development and your game gets canceled after 2 weeks of release is
pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of things that probably should be canceled, let's talk about the Minecraft movie.
Yes, we had the first trailer for this, and it does that thing. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before recently about it's such lazy writing to have a fantastical world, but then be like, oh, also our world exists, and people are coming to it from our world. Because then you have this built-in mechanism for explaining the world. It's so cheap to me. Like,
Yeah,
don't just go full force and be in the world. Don't make it like, oh, they're coming from like America and like this is why they think everything is weird and they're wearing regular clothes and they look like humans. Like, I don't know. Another thing about this trailer before we get into it, the fact that they look like regular people and they're in the Minecraft world, I feel like is a huge misstep. This should have been like fully CGI or like fully animated.
Yeah.
The fact that like Jason Momoa is like wandering around next to like a blocky tree doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I thought the same thing when I saw this. I was like, why did you like put real live actors into this weird CGI scene? Why couldn't it have just been an animated movie?
Yeah.
But also, I would argue Jason Momoa's look in this movie isn't anything but normal.
they gave him a wild wig and he's wearing like a pink suit or something.
It's like a pink leather jacket with like, I don't know, frilly parts. It's weird.
I think I read somewhere that his character description is that he's like a garbage man or something. Gary the Garbage Man? Is that a thing from, I don't know. But
also,
yeah, I didn't love this.
Also, why is Jack Black in this movie as Minecraft Steve or whatever his name is?
That is something else, because I was sure that's towards the end of the trailer where they reveal Steve, and I was sure they were going to be like, okay, these people are human, but when they get to Steve, surely that's going to be like a Minecraft guy. It's going to look like a Minecraft guy. But no, it is just Jack Black with a big beard. Basically how he looks in his everyday life.
Like, it's just normal.
He didn't even
Jack
cut his
Black.
hair. Which is a take, I guess, but
Not
I don't know. I'm sure
one.
it's going to be like he dropped into there when he was a kid and he's been living there. So he's like an expert or whatever. But again, it's just I hate that trope of like, you have this property that has all these fantastical elements and they have to be from our world. It's just like, it makes the script way easier to write, but it makes it so boring to watch.
Plus, like, you can tell just by the looks of the characters' faces that the whole shtick is going to be them looking around like, well, that just happened, which is the most annoying tropey thing ever.
All of these movies, that trope leads to one plot line, and that plot line is always, well, I got to get back to my world. So like whatever's happening here, I have to get back to my world, which is just like, I don't care about that. If I dropped into a fantasy world, I would want to stay there because it looks cool. Or just like have a story that takes place solely in that world. And people are like, well, there's a problem here. Here's an interesting problem. Like the real world is not involved. So that was probably my least favorite part of this, is that they go through a portal, which also, not to, be nitpicky, but the portal they go through is the wrong color for portals in Minecraft. It should be purple. Unless they're going to like the Aether, which isn't even an official thing. But I don't know. I was not into this.
Also, the stinger at the end where they have like this little moment that's like they give you the title of the movie and then they cut back to something that's supposed to make you laugh before the trailer ends. It's not even like a laugh moment. I don't even know what's happening. It's just like a llama standing there and people run past the screen and then he just keeps chewing. It's just like, okay.
They
Was
also
supposed to get a big laugh or something?
They didn't go full Minecraft, I feel like the sheep they show and like the llama they show are obviously Minecraft inspired, but they made them look, in my opinion, a little dumber. Which, like, why wouldn't you just make it look like Minecraft? I don't know. It bummed me out.
For a long time, I have been saying that as like comic book movies like start to lose their appeal with just oversaturation, that video games would sort of rise up and take their place as like the next sort of fertile ground for movies. And that it seemed like maybe they were going to start doing that and that things were going to start actually, working out where you have a bunch of screenwriters and directors who grew up playing video games, whereas I feel like previous to that, you had a bunch of people who had never played the games, didn't know what they were doing, and were just trying to make a movie with some video game title, and they made them really bad. Yeah. And I was like, well, now that like people who work in Hollywood probably grew up playing these games, they're probably going to do good things with video game adaptations. And we got a few good ones, like you had the Detective Pikachu movie, and you had like the Super Mario Brothers movie was pretty good, and you had like the Fallout TV show, which was, pretty good as well. But now with Borderlands and this movie, I'm thinking, okay, I jumped the gun on that prediction, and it's not going to happen. They're going to make a bunch of garbage movies like this, and they're not going to do well, and they're going to be like, well, that's not going to work out. Let's stop doing that now. And they're just going to go back to comic book movies. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think Minecraft is like a unique one because it inundated our society so much that it's basically, I would say this is less, it's almost less a video game movie and more of like the emoji movie almost, where like people are just looking at things and being like, well, this is a thing. I don't need any context for this. Let's just drop it into a movie. Like someone saw emojis and they were like, okay, what if like the happy emoji was just like a guy and he just like walked around a world? And similarly, probably executives in Hollywood were just like, okay, people like, look at this sheep. What if this sheep was just like in a scene and it baaed really crazily? Make that. I always go to Target and I see kids looking at like stuffed Minecraft stuff. Let's make a movie about that, said some old guy in a business.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think a lot of love went into this. I have to say, it's probably, I would guess that most of the people in charge have never touched the actual game.
I mean, it could have just been the Lego movie, but Minecraft. And
that would have been great. The key with the Lego movie, I think, is they got a solid team to make it. They got Lord and Miller, who had that comedy background, and they just like really cared about it. But I don't even know who directed this. Probably someone. Oh, actually, let me look.
Jared Hess.
Who is that?
I don't know.
He made Nacho Libre, didn't he?
I guess that would be why he cast Jack Black in yet another video game adaptation.
Yeah. Jack Black's having a crazy year. I wonder if he is aware that like Borderlands didn't do super great, or if he's just like totally above it all. He must
Hard to
know.
say. I'm sure he knows that it bombed, but I don't know.
Well, anyway,
soon enough, it'll get to the point where he's been in enough like bombed video game adaptations that they'll stop casting him. But he's been in every single one of them, basically.
I don't have much else to say about this, but I guess when they release another trailer, we'll know more about the plot. But I assume the plot is just, oh, we got dropped into this world, we need to get back to our world, which is lazy and I hate it. So
just commit to the bit and make a movie that's actually set in the universe, and don't just take real world people and throw them into a video game universe just to like, I don't know.
By all accounts, those Telltale games where it was like in Minecraft, I've heard those were really good, and they had like characters you could pull from, but they just decided to not engage with that and just have it be one of those get back to Earth scenarios.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some good news.
Okay, good news. So No Man's Sky is still going strong this year. They dropped another little add-on and a new expedition. I think it's the Acarius update is what they're calling it. And it added fishing. And there's a whole new expedition based around the new fishing mechanics. And I have not dived into this yet, but I want to because I liked the last expedition they had. And so they had Worlds Part 1. This is not called Worlds Part 2. I assume that's still in the pipeline. But
yeah, this was surprising to me when I saw this trailer because I assumed the next update would be Worlds Part 2, but maybe it'll just be like Worlds and then another thing and then Worlds again and then another thing. Like maybe they'll hop back and forth between major updates.
Yeah, so if you recall, we talked about that sort of tweet that Sean Murray had where there were like 3 little pictures that were blurred out and everybody was trying to figure out what they were.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe this was one of them and Worlds Part 2 is probably somewhere in there, and then they probably have something else. So I don't know what the other thing would be, but...
Interesting.
This seems like a smaller little update that just adds some additional features to it, and another expedition is always fun. By all accounts, this one seems to be more chill, which makes sense since it's like fishing, but...
Yeah.
I do want to check it out at some point. I think we have until, I think it runs into October before, because the expeditions are like these limited time things. But they're always worth checking out because they are a lot of fun to partake in. So I do want to check it out before it is like that time period ends. But there's so many things to play right now.
It's true. I'm excited to hear about all the things you've played. We have one more news item, which isn't really, I don't know if this is news or not, but we're coming up on the 30th anniversary of PlayStation, and they posted about it. PlayStation did, like the official Twitter account, and just like for some promotional material, like get ready for the 30th anniversary or whatnot. But in that promotional material, there is a slide, and people are speculating that they have secretly hidden the design for a 30th anniversary Pro model of the PS5 within that graphic.
Really?
Which I think it's going to look pretty similar to the regular PS5, but it will have basically these like stripes going down it, is what the speculation is. And people are saying that maybe confirms that when the actual 30th anniversary happens is when they will announce the PS5 Pro.
Do you think this would get you to pick up a PS5 when they...
I gotta say, Astro Bot, by all accounts, I'm excited to hear you talk about it, is a revelation and something that I really want to get my hands on. So I would be interested to see if this affects like the price of a regular PlayStation, or what exactly the benefits are of a Pro model.
Yeah, I'm very curious to hear about that too, because I feel like last gen it was pretty obvious what the benefits of a Pro model would be, but this year I'm not as certain about that. But and Astro Bot, you're right, is basically you're flying around in a spaceship that looks like a PS5, and so you would think it would almost be kind of fun if they had some sort of Easter egg that you could find that revealed the PS5 Pro design. But to my knowledge, that is not in the game. But we can dive into Astro Bot if you want.
Let's do it, because I am so curious. Everything I've heard is like 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s. People are saying it's like the most fun they've had since, like the most fun with a platformer they've had since Mario Odyssey, which is probably one of my favorite games that I could replay endlessly.
Yeah.
What's been your experience?
Well, so I have not actually read any of the reviews, so I didn't know you were going to say that. But the first thing I wrote down was the best platformer since Mario Odyssey.
Well, there you go.
It is every bit as good. It feels like the type of game Nintendo would release, but it's like obviously very like tied into PlayStation and like the history of PlayStation.
Sure.
And it starts out and you're like flying around on the spaceship shaped like a PS5, and some alien attacks or whatever and like steals some components from the PS5, and then the what's left of it like sort of breaks apart and crash lands on a little planet, and a bunch of your little Astro Bot friends who are all like themed to different characters from video games across, like not just exclusive to Sony, but just different video game characters. They all go sort of missing, spread across all the different, there are like 6 galaxies, and each galaxy you go into has like a handful of levels each that you can play through. I heard there were like 80 worlds, which seems, maybe it is that. I haven't actually added them up, but it seems like it seems like a lot. But I think there was a quote from the director that I think Games Radar, I saw, had an article where they talked about how like a 12 to 15 hour game of like condensed fun is much better than like 40 plus hours of a game where you feel like skipping parts of it. And I would say that is like a very good description of this game, because it is like every level is just like so good and so fun to play. There are some challenging parts as well. Like I feel like you can find these sort of secret levels in each of the galaxies, and some of those like extra sort of secret levels get pretty tough at times. But the rest of the game is like, I don't know, it did remind me of playing through Super Mario Odyssey, just how like fun and sort of joyful it is to play through the game, such that I could definitely see myself playing through it again later, just because it's that much fun.
Wow. I praise.
Sort of similar to Mario Odyssey, and you're not like using Cappy to like steal enemy abilities to get around, but you do in certain levels get different backpacks. Like there's a dog jetpack that you get like these monkey arms to like climb up stuff, which you saw in Astro's Playroom, so that one like carries over. But you also get like these VR goggles that when you equip them, you can like take them on and off, and when you put them on, everything slows down for like a short period of time, and you can use that for platforming as well. There's also a chicken backpack that like is like a rocket that makes you jump super high. So there's like some really fun, interesting ideas in this game as well. But yeah, I'm super into it. I think a lot of people are saying it's like an instant GOTY contender. So
yeah,
it might be up there. I think it'll be interesting to watch the Game Awards this year and see what gets nominated and what ends up winning. It could be that what was that co-op game that I didn't play and was surprised to see that people were that high on it that it ended up winning Game of the Year?
No Way Out or whatever, the one where you're the two convicts?
No, it was the like animated one where it's like co-op.
It Takes Two.
Yeah. So that game, like, I was not expecting it to be like seriously in the conversation for Game of the Year, but everybody was so high on it that it ended up winning. I could see Astro Bot like having that sort of a run at Game of the Year. So I'm loving the game, and I think it is definitely a game that you would love. So you should maybe pick up a PS5 and play.
I mean, it's crazy to say this, but like this even more than Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. What was it called? Rebirth? Rebirth,
yeah.
Yeah, this even more than that makes me want to get a PS5, because it just like Mario Odyssey is something I mean, it's so sad that there was never a Mario Odyssey 2, because I loved that game so much, and I feel like this is exactly what I want. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe I will pick one up. I don't know.
I was gonna say, like, there was also the director of the game also talked about how this game in particular is like them filling a gap that has been left in like Sony's portfolio for a long time, because so many of their studios like started out back in the day with games like Crash Bandicoot that were like these mascot games, and they've all basically moved on to these like hyper realistic, mature rated games, and they don't really have anything like both Sony and Microsoft have basically ceded that ground to like, hey, here you go, Nintendo, this is your area to play in. We don't want any part of that space. But now you have this, and it is this like sort of family friendly good for all ages type of platformer that like
Yeah.
only Nintendo is making these days, and to have it be like obviously it's not Smash Ultimate, but to have like that sort of crossover where you have so many different like odes to other game franchises.
They have so many
wrapped up into
IPs they can pull from.
Yeah. And there are like, I think there are 300 different bots to go rescue in the different levels. So like, each level you're not just like running through it. I mean, you are doing that, but there are like at least like 5 to 7 bots to find in each of them. And you're also finding these puzzle pieces as collectibles in each level. And it has this nice feature where if you play through the level and you complete it, but you haven't found everything in it, when you restart the level at the very beginning, when you first drop in, there's like this little birdhouse that you can interact with, and you pay like 200 coins or whatever to have it follow you around, and it'll like sort of blink like a radar in the direction of like one of the collectibles you've missed as you're going through the level. So it has like this nice feature to sort of help you
excellent.
Find stuff that you might have missed your first time through. So yeah, and it has like so you go back to the crash site on that one planet that you crash in at the very beginning, and that's sort of your hub space, and there's stuff to find and collect there as well. But the boss fights are like pretty fun and interesting as well. Each galaxy has like some sort of boss fight. Yeah, I can't say enough good about it. I think it's great, and it could very well win Game of the Year.
That's exciting.
Yeah, especially since you and I are always talking about it, how much we want Super Mario Odyssey 2.
Yeah.
In the absence of that game, or another, Mario game, this is, I think, the next best thing. So
crazy.
Also, I did play through and complete Crypt Custodian this last week.
How was it?
It's very good. It's another one that is a very high recommendation from me, specifically to you, because I think you would really like it.
Oh, yeah. It looks like my jam for sure. What did you play it on?
I played it on Switch. So I was out of town this last week, and so it was just like kind of the perfect little Switch game to play while doing a little bit of traveling. And it's not super long, but it is like sort of a top-down Zelda-like Metroidvania. Very, very good soundtrack. You can get the soundtrack on like Spotify or YouTube Music. Definitely worth looking up because it's very good. But it's like a solo developer. I think his brother is the one who does the soundtrack to his games. So it's kind of a nice little like family thing they have going on. But there were some difficult moments. It basically has a lot of like Hollow Knight DNA as well, where you're like finding these places to like rest at. I guess they're like wells or something like that, but you find those and you can rest, and you can equip different basically charms. They sort of amount to the charm system, but you go around and you're finding these secrets. You can find upgrade points that allow you to equip more of the charms basically, and you have sort of like special abilities as well that you can equip and use them. The boss fights all are pretty interesting as well. It's getting overlooked because it's such a small like little indie game, but it like performed super well on Switch. It was like super smooth to play. So the developer really is like very good, like a solo developer, but this game kind of looks and feels like it was made by like a sizable team. So
this one is definitely on my list, but I probably won't pick it up until I complete Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Tell me, I hear you have gotten into the Phantom Liberty stuff.
The way you initiate that, and I was aware of this, so I was kind of like rocketing towards this, but the way you finish it out, or I guess start the quest line, is you have to complete the Voodoo Boys quest line, which, as we all remember, is where it culminates in you going to that big mall in Pacifica and kind of clearing it out, and then you have a confrontation with a net watch person. And that's sort of where a main part of the story unfolds, because directly after that, I guess spoilers for Cyberpunk, but it's been out for a while. Directly after that, you descend into cyberspace and have to talk to Alt Cunningham for the first time, and you're sort of given your marching orders. Right after that finishes is when Songbird basically takes over. Songbird is one of the main protagonists or like quest givers in Phantom Liberty. She takes over your like comms or whatever and is like, hey, something's going on in Dogtown. I can get you in. And so it starts. And so I just immediately went for that, even though I knew you'd be locked in for a while. And Dogtown is very cool. Part of it is in a big like football stadium that is abandoned, because all of Dogtown is like in a kind of a broken down area that's kind of walled off. But getting into it is really cool because you have to sneak in. It's a very vertical zone, so if you don't have double jump, it's going to be very hard for you to navigate Dogtown. But you get in there, you interact with, the whole story is like a spy story, and you're dealing with like the president has crash landed or whatever. A lot of combat, a lot more than I was expecting, actually. And I don't remember if I feel like in the main game, most of the time I was able to just like stealth around and do stealth stuff. But with this one, there's a lot of engagements where you just like are having to run through an area and there are a ton of people around shooting at you, and there's basically no way to hide. But it's great. I think I'm not super far in it. So like there's the first thing you initially have to do, which is a very, very cool sequence. And then that sequence lasts, it's almost like multiple beats. Like there's a crash landing sequence that happens. And then after that, there's maybe the coolest sequence I've had in Cyberpunk is like, there's a part where, I don't want to spoil too much, but there is your like handler, that Songbird, takes control of a mech basically, and crazy stuff happens. It's like I wasn't expecting the production values to be this high, but it's like everything is like bespoke and looks like unique. It's not like nothing's really like copy pasted from the main game. It's like it feels like it almost feels like a full sequel, which I think is what a lot of people said when it came out. But that sequence with the mech was just like, it blew my mind, like the production values of it. And so now I finally ran into Idris Elba and I'm doing that stuff. But yeah, there's so many interesting ideas. I've done a couple gigs in Dogtown and they're all pretty unique, even from like distinct from the regular game. But it's great. I love playing it. It's one of those things where I forgot that Cyberpunk did this, where they do a really cool thing where there are icons on the map that are just side gigs or just regular gigs. And they don't tell you what it is. They just say like, whoa, it could be here. Something maybe is here. And you go there and you sort of have to figure it out. And so I'm so rarely, in a game like this, I feel like you are thinking you're going to be looking at your journal a whole lot, but I'm almost never looking at my journal. All I'm really doing is looking at the map, seeing what I'm close to, wandering over there, and then just like completing that little quest. And then when I finish it, I look at the map again, and I'm like invariably next to something else, which is great. And I feel like I'm going to be super charged up by, like, I'm probably going to do all the DLC and then dive back into the main game and be super charged up, because it also unlocks that other skill tree, the relic tree, which is another cool thing about Dogtown, is the way you level up your relic is there are like little computer caches, and your controller will like vibrate if you're next to one. And so you have to collect these relic points in order to build. It's not like you don't collect experience to do it like you do with your regular skill trees. You have to find specific things to level it up. But I gotta say, it's I'm loving it, and I can't get enough of it. And I probably will continue to play it pretty nonstop until I beat it, unless I hit a wall. But right now, every mission is like blowing me away, and I'm loving it.
Or if Silksong drops, that'll get you.
If Silksong drops, that's a big point. I am now of the mind. We talked about it, I think, last week or the week before. My prediction now is it will be a launch title for whatever the Switch 2 is, because it would be an insane launch title, a huge get for them. So I think it will probably not launch until 2025 when the Switch 2 comes out. Maybe in March is my I was gonna say my recommendation, but I have no say in it.
You recommend it release in March?
This is what I think they should do. But no, I think probably it'll come out in March. Is what I think. But yeah, Phantom Liberty. So far, 10 stars from me. I guess I'll have more to say. I know that it affects the full ending of the game. You get like a new default, like canonical ending. So I'm interested. I have not looked up what that is. Last time I did the Pan Am ending, where you sort of are just like, you end up with the nomads. So I think I'm going to do a different ending this time. Hopefully I'll do the correct ending. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about Phantom Liberty.
Yeah, maybe one of these days I will get around to checking that out.
It's pretty good. Well, maybe, and I'll have more to say next week because I'll have played more, and maybe I'll do like a full little review once I complete the whole DLC. But I don't know how. I mean, it's such a big area. I really don't know how long it's going to take me.
Yeah.
I breezed through getting to it. Like I think I knew what I was doing, so it only took me about 15 hours. So if you know what you're doing, if you played it before, you probably can get to the DLC in under like 15 hours, but you can also jump straight to it with that new game option.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do if I were playing it, but I have been playing another thing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 is out, or I guess in early access maybe. I have started playing it, and I haven't played super far into it, so I feel like maybe we can do like a more in-depth discussion on it next week, but it's very good so far.
Did you play the first one?
I started it. It was a weird time back when that came out. I think I didn't play it initially, and then I was working at like a GameStop competitor that was like locally owned, and so I was able to borrow it briefly, and I played part of it, but not very far into it. But yeah, you have like this mix of like third-person shooter plus like melee combat, and there's like you like dodge and parry mechanics. It's like, I don't know, it's very fun so far, and it does get fairly challenging as well. But it's the big thing that interests me is like some of those like co-op missions and stuff like that, like because it has like a full like campaign that you can play either solo or in co-op, but it also has these co-op missions that you can play that has its own like progression system and unlocks. There's also like a multiplayer mode, which I have not dipped my toes in yet, but so I've only played like maybe a couple of the main story missions and then like one co-op mission with randoms, and it is like I can see this sort of eating Helldiver's lunch basically.
Really?
I think it is going to possibly blow up in a similar way to Helldivers.
Wow.
And yeah, I think it's very cool so far. I'm very into it. I definitely want to play more of it. Right now, I feel like I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between Astro Bot and Warhammer. I don't know anything about the universe, but I want to as I'm playing this. Like, I find it very cool and interesting. But
is it level based, or how do you engage with it? You start it up, and I think that you kind of get to a point where you're sort of at this hub space, and it's so seamless that it feels like it's just part of like this linear story, but you can like go to the next mission and start it, or you can interact with this console and load up one of the like co-op missions. And it does warn you that if you don't play through the campaign fully first and you dive into some of those co-op missions, you could get spoilers for the story, because all the co-op missions are like tied into the story mode. So like, interesting.
The first mission or two I did, eventually there was like a cutscene where the guy you're playing, Titus, is like talking to somebody. He's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. We need to go do this, but we need to send this other team to go do this other thing for us. And then the game, like a pop-up came up and was like, you can go do the next mission, but if you want to see how that other group like handles this other thing, go play this co-op mission.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, it ties in. So basically everything you're doing is sort of like supporting that story that they're doing. So it's really interesting how they're handling it. I feel like it's tied in almost a better way than Mass Effect 3 multiplayer did it, where it was sort of tied in, but it was like very, very loosely how the co-op sort of supported the main story. It was like very, very loosely tied in, but this seems a little bit more specific in how they're tying it into the main story. So I'm interested to play more of that and see how it goes. But yeah, so yeah, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between these two games. I'll have more to say about Space Marine 2 next week, but I also want to finish Astro Bot. I have to say, like, some of the most fun levels in that game, I forgot to mention earlier, there's like a God of War level and there's an Uncharted level where like you defeat a boss and then it like you find one of the like core sort of PlayStation mascot characters like Kratos or Nathan Drake, and then there's like a special mission after that you do where it gave you Kratos axe, like the frost axe, and you can go around throwing it and recalling it just like you do in the God of War games. And in the Uncharted one, you just have his gun and you can like, it becomes a shooter. It's like really fun.
Man.
I don't know.
I really want to play it.
You need to, so that we can talk about it. And I think you would love it. So
I watched two things also that I want to talk about.
Okay.
There's a 4K remaster that's coming out of the movie The Fall. Did you ever watch The Fall back in the day?
The Fall.
By Tarsem.
Is that the one with Hugh Jackman? What am I thinking of?
Are you thinking of I don't know what you're thinking of. The one that's set in Australia, maybe? Where he's a drover?
Maybe. Is that a different movie also called The Fall?
Maybe. I don't know what that's called.
I have to
The
look
Fall
it up.
is by Tarsem Singh, who did The Cell, is another one of his movies. He is a very visual filmmaker. Like, there's a bunch of really cool shots in this that are like, there's one of the most famous shots is like a picture of this guy's face, and then it kind of fades into this like vignette of this thing that's happening. Stars Lee Pace and a little girl who doesn't really speak a lot of English, who's very adorable and precocious. But I loved this movie
I was
back in the day.
thinking of The Fountain. Sorry.
The Fountain. I don't even remember. Oh, yeah, I remember The Fountain. But if you haven't seen The Fall, I think it's a great movie, although it was much more, I'll say, melancholy than I remember. But visually, it's just like a masterpiece. And Lee Pace is great in it, and the little precocious girl is great in it. Some excellent shots. I think I saw it in theaters when it came out, and it blew me away. But there's a 4K remaster coming out, and so I decided to check it out. And I still really like it. Again, it is a little bit more sad than I recall. But just like from the images alone, just the crafting of the movie, I think it's worth taking a look at. So if you haven't seen The Fall, check it out. Or wait for, I guess, for the 4K to come out, because I think it will look beautiful. Very colorful and just visually stunning. And then the other thing I watched, the first 2 episodes of a show came out that I was eagerly anticipating. Zach, do you know who Brian Jordan Alvarez is?
No.
He is a guy who lives in LA and has been making small stuff for a while. I first became aware of him because he and his friends made a movie and then they just like released it on YouTube for free. And I think that I was listening to some comedy podcast and they were like, oh, you got to check out this movie that just dropped on YouTube for free. This movie is called A Spy Movie, which is a little hard to search for, frankly, because there is that other movie called Spy,
Yeah.
and there's a ton of like trailers and bloopers from that movie. But eventually, you should just get to a spy movie. I think it's on his YouTube channel, so if you just search for Brian Jordan Alvarez. But I watched that, and I really, really liked it. And then I went back. He had like a web series that he made that I thought was really good. And he rose to somewhat prominence recently this year because he is a TikTok guy, and that's like one of the things he does. And he made a character that made a song that got remixed, that Sitting song. Were you ever aware of that Sitting song?
No.
That kind of blew up for a while, but this is his show. I think he's the creator and star of this show called English Teacher that has started airing on FX. And I watched the first 2 episodes, and they were great. And I really like this guy. He's a cool guy. He seems really nice, and I'm happy for his success. Like, I feel like he's been working in LA for a super long time, and he's like finally really breaking out into the market. It's like, I feel like one of those things where when you're aware of someone, but nobody else is, and they start to blow up, you feel some kind of like ownership over it, where like you feel like you're doing good too. But I like this show, and it's airing on FX, and hopefully it does good. I think it's getting great reviews. It has like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I didn't even know they did shows. But if you're looking for it's like short form, it's like a half-hour comedy. I think people are kind of comparing it to Abbott Elementary because it is also about a school kind of. But I did a rewatch earlier this year of all of 30 Rock, which I love. It's probably my favorite show, maybe. And I just am like hungry for more like half-hour comedies that are really solid and great, which is similar to what we were talking about with Astro Bot. I feel like there used to be a bunch of really solid half-hour comedies like The Office and Parks and Rec and stuff like that. But now there aren't really. And so it's nice to see another one kind of come up that is pretty solid. So if you're looking for something like a comedy type thing, check out English Teacher, and also check out The Fall if you're looking for the opposite of that, a very melancholy long movie.
I guess I could recommend the what's his name, Stephen Chow Journey to the West movies. I think I recommended them to you off air last week.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention it during the podcast, but we were talking about Black Myth Wukong, and there have been so many different movie adaptations of Journey to the West. And so the one Stephen Chow made in like the 90s, I think, is called A Chinese Odyssey. It's part 1 and part 2. But very, very good, very funny, sort of lighthearted take on Journey to the West. But a classic among Cantonese speakers, but very good if you want to find some sort of adaptation. I know they're like more recent ones, but I always think of those for some reason. But fun movies to check out. They're like, they reference, since they're made in the 90s when like Wong Kar-wai was becoming like a big deal at the time, they're like references to his movies in there as well. But definitely worth checking out. I don't know how easy they are to find is maybe the only thing. You might have to like find an actual physical copy of it, because I would doubt that it's streaming anywhere, but maybe you can find it. I guess I haven't searched recently to be able to tell you one way or another, but they're worth checking out if you are interested in that story. But
speaking of streaming things, I'll recommend one more thing. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, but I'm excited to. I'll probably will have watched it by the next time we record a podcast. But available on digital now, you can stream Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In. Have you heard of this movie?
No.
A new release. It looks great. It's an action movie. It takes place in that walled city over in China or Hong Kong. I don't know where it is. But it's got a bunch of classic actors in it, like Sammo Hung is in it. It looks great. The trailers are crazy. It looks like there's a bunch of really cool action scenes in it. But it's available, I think, to rent on Google Play, and I think it's going to be on Max eventually. So I probably am going to rent it. But Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In. If you're interested in an action-packed movie, check it out.
Yeah, I'd check that out for sure. Do you have any parting wisdom for us?
You know, Zach, I went apple picking this weekend, and I've never done that before, but I did it, and I really liked it. It was
a good fall activity.
A good fall activity. They had apple cider donuts that I was able to check out. They had a number. I didn't even know there were so many apples. They had like 5 or 6 different types of apples. I've only ever seen like, green apples and red apples, but there are all kinds of apples, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so my recommendation is to check out apple picking if it's available by you.
Yeah, as we get into fall, go to pumpkin patches and apple orchards, and that always seems like a fun fall activity to do. But
never done it before, but I loved it.
Yeah, last year I think I went with some family members to a pumpkin patch here in town, and they had like the corn maze that you could go through, and they had a bunch of pumpkins and like a bunch of different stuff, like activities for kids and stuff as well. My sister took her dog, and the dog loved that corn maze. He was having the time of his life running through that corn maze. But on that note, go ahead and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Starside Cafe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.